All right, it looks like we have a good amount of people who have showed up so far, so we'll go ahead and get the ball rolling. Once again, thanks for joining us for the Datathon, for all the collaborative efforts we're going to have presented today. And so once again, my name is Ross Cooper. I'm a Sea Grant Fellow working with the State Water Resources Control Board. Before we dive into things, I'd like to introduce Greg Gearhart, the director of the OWEMA program here at the State Water Resource Control Board. And he's going to give us an introductory address and give a little bit of background on what we're going to be working on today.
Thanks, Ross. Hi, everyone. Assuming everything is coming through clearly. You see me and hear me, Ross?
I can hear you just fine. I'm sharing my screen, but you are visible on the grid, yes.
Cool. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Greg Gearhart. I'm Deputy Director, Information Management and Analysis at the State Water Resource Control Board. We're a 10-board organization. I'm going to go through a really quick overview of how and sort of why we regulate trash in California and how it relates to this data thing in brief. But I also just wanted to give a quick shout out to the team. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, all the other members of the team, Nick Martirano at my shop, sort of previous guidance from Anna Holder, a Sea Grant Fellow last year, who helped out on some of this stuff. And then Tony and Wynn and Walter and Gary and all the others. So anyway, thanks everyone for making this happen. We actually were going to do this earlier in the year, but we weren't quite sure how to do it virtually. So we thought about it, and thanks for making it happen. So going to the next slide, if you could. Waiting. Is it just me on a slow connection?
No, I didn't know if you were going to do the slides. It's probably Ross.
All right, Ross, next slide. There you go. Awesome. Okay, so one more slide. That logo is actually from the last big in-person event that we did. We did sort of a mini version, but that condor was the sticker. So those of you who want a sticker, email me or something, and we'll try to figure out a way to get you a sticker. Okay, so in California, we have an approach to regulating trash that is focused primarily on our stormwater permitting system. And to make it a statewide approach, the State Water Board adopted what is called the Trash Plan Amendments. And these plan amendments are what they sound like. They amend statewide water quality control plans, making the requirements essentially applicable to all of the state of California in one fell swoop. Prior to this, in this adoption of these plan amendments about 6 years ago, prior to that, there were a couple parts of the state that were doing work to regulate trash, but this made it sort of a uniform statewide approach. And the two plans that it amended in particular were the Ocean Plan and the Inland Surface Water Enclosed Bays and Estuary Plan. So those two plans, if you think about it, they cover the watershed, the delivery system for trash. Now, next slide, please. What these plan amendments focused on were the stormwater permits that we have. So still waiting. I'll just keep talking. The stormwater permits have essentially two kinds of stormwater permit or activities that are regulated. One is called, you can click through all of this, by the way. There's like 5 clicks. One is called the Industrial Stormwater Program that actually covers also construction. And then the second main area that's regulated is called the Municipal Stormwater Program. These plan amendments apply to both the industrial and the municipal, but they're largely aimed at the municipal. If you think about it, this is an attempt to control the discharges by way of the urban watersheds that we have where trash is most likely to be accruing. In urban, that municipal definition is a little tricky. It actually incorporates municipal-like activities. So highway systems, like the whole state of California's highway systems. Caltrans has a permit for all their discharges. It also covers things like state parks and exposition areas and places like that, universities. So there's a lot of sort of gray area, but basically what this attempt is trying to do is throw a technological filter at the urban areas of California. It does it by way of these 5 things. I'm just going to briefly go through this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the ones that are highlighted. Next slide, please. Should I just give you more notice, or? Oh, looks like maybe I can control it.
Yeah, sorry,
All
it
right,
looks like it's lagging a little bit on my end. Are you able to control it, Greg? I think it's just me.
I felt like I saw controls.
There's a bit of a delay.
Go up. It's all right. This is just a diagram showing you a cartoon of how trash gets into the waterways. I think the thing that I'll emphasize here is if you see where that arrow, can you move your mouse a little bit, Ross? The key here is that those pipes that are coming out of the green landscape on the right-hand side of that sort of creek, those pipes are the sort of the points that are controlled. And that's how this stormwater permit system works. It's essentially a fakie on a non-point source program being put into a point source regulatory system. So the controls apply at those points of discharge. And so if you go backwards on those pipes, you'll see that there's drain inlets, which makes sense in most of those cases, but it's not always the case. But in the cases where there is an intervention opportunity, like a drain inlet, that's the other strategy that this regulatory method takes into mind. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to skip gears into what other activities are happening around the state, but basically what those plan amendments do is they encourage people to choose 1 or 2 tracks, and the track that's incentivized is a technological track where they are required to put in essentially a filter system, 5 millimeter or larger sort of screening approach called full capture that would apply in all their high generating trash areas. So they have to go through this process of identifying where those high generating trash areas are, and then they have to put in technological controls or interventions on all of them. The second thing, the second track is really for everyone who can't fit neatly into that first track, which turns out to be most of the people in California or most of the entities. And the second track does include monitoring. The first one, the only monitoring required is to tell us that you did it. But the second track is the one that generates what is considered on-land visual trash assessment kind of data. And you may hear a little bit more about that throughout the next couple of days. And the reason that I'm segueing to the Monitoring Council is because this approach left a gigantic gap in the monitoring of trash questions. How do you monitor? What are the different methods? How do you develop new methods? How do you sort of make sense of the data when you're collecting it? And filling in that gap, stepping in to help is the Water Quality Monitoring Council. So we're lucky here to have Nick Martirano, the director of the council, and Tony Hale, who's I think the working group co-chair, Shelley Moore, other people that are like very involved in co-chairing and leading this effort. And I'm not going to try to steal any thunder that they may have from sharing their expertise, but basically this working group has 3 subcommittees that have really stepped up to help. We're focusing on unhomed or unhoused areas and communities, looking also at community science as a way to sort of generate better and more useful information, since a lot of community activists and groups are out there doing the cleanup and assessing what kind of conditions are at these places. And then finally, a data-focused subgroup or subcommittee. Next slide, please. I also want to give a shout out to the Ocean Protection Council. They're doing a lot. They have a couple of initiatives. One is the Plastic Prevention Steering Committee, which is sort of an internal state agency that's talking about micro and macro plastics. They also have an ocean litter strategy partnership with the feds, NOAA, and other partners. And they're actively involved in our trash monitoring methods work, including funding it and providing some guidance on how to do monitoring and develop new methods and what have you. So a shout out to them, thank you. Next slide. We are focused, my office in particular is focused on turning data into information. And that's really why we've been doing these trash datathons. This is our 4th event. I can't actually keep track. It might be the 5th event if you count some of the sub events, but this is the 3rd main trash datathon that we're having, so welcome. There are previous efforts that are available. You probably have seen some of the links, but for sure, You'll hear a little bit about some of these in your work today, because this is an iterative process. It is really all about building on prior knowledge and taking steps to improve what we can and can't do with some of the data, and really improving the whole ecosystem around the trash data. So, and you'll really hear a lot about this as you get into the presentations and the pitches, but I can't emphasize how important this iterative thing is. And we literally, Win and Walter and Tony and Shelley and Gary have been involved since the beginning. And each time we do this, we make significant progress. So I'm really excited about what we're going to do today. These are some of the topics that we've done in the past, but you'll hear more about the pitches as we get into going into the current and the present. Next slide. I think that's getting close to the end. Oh, and I want to give also incredible shout out to Nature Conservancy and IDEO for hosting a workshop last summer in the middle of COVID. I think it was originally planned to be in person, and they pivoted, and they did an incredible job of collecting all the thought and knowledge that was available during those 2 days of workshops, as well as the pre-planning. And this website, that's a link. We can provide the link in the chat if you haven't seen it already, but this website is a repository of all the amazing thought and knowledge that went into that workshop. That is also inspiring a lot of the topics that we're dealing with today. There was a strong desire in that workshop to sort of build feedback loops so that we would inform the decision makers more on behavior. There's definitely multiple pathways to go with trash data. You can ask questions, you can do research, you can sort of do study-based designs. But one of the things that was the biggest gap that we thought that needed to be improved was that feedback loop that changes people's behavior. And so that's one of the reasons that we're doing dashboarding and some other things today. It really came out of the work that was done by Nature Conservancy and IDEO. So thanks to them. And we have members of that team here today also. So I think that's all I have. Next slide. Yep, that's it. Thanks, Ross, for the moment, and good luck, everyone. I'll be around today to help.
Fantastic. Yeah, thanks for that intro, Greg. I'm just going to go ahead and reshare my screen again. I was having some issues there for just a minute. Let's see. Yeah, I'm having a little bit, I think you all should still be able to see it. I'm having a little bit of issue going full screen right now, but essentially what we're going to do now is the group leaders from each group are going to give a brief introduction and a preview of the things that they're going to be working on in their group. If you filled out that pre-event survey, you were able to indicate which group you wanted to be a part of, but this is a 2-day event. We're going to have plenty of time to check out multiple groups as well too. So this is a chance to get a little bit of a more in-depth understanding of what's going to be happening. And I'll touch on this a little bit later, but feel free to navigate between the different breakout rooms once they're open, and you'll have a chance to check out the different ones, see which ones resonate with you a little bit more, which ones you might want to work on. But before we get into that, here's an opportunity for the various group leaders to tell you a little bit more about their group. And so this is the first group, which is led by Win Calgar. This is the Trash Data Dashboard.
Thanks, Ross. So one of the big challenges in trash data is, where do you find it? And there are many different databases out there for trash data, but really none of them are open to having any and all data uploaded to them. And so this trash data treasure trove is a culmination of me searching through data sets and compiling them and putting them all in one place from, I don't know, now it's like 50 different sources. And so the task at hand really at this point is to curate metadata, which is data about the data, so that we can make this data database useful. And so that's kind of the first step, but also to make it, you can't just have like a database with a bunch of words in it and expect people to know how to navigate it. So what we're going to do with that metadata is we're going to create a dashboard that helps people interactively display all of the data sets from the trash data treasure trove using the metadata that we'll be curating, and helps people to quickly drill down to what data sets are available for their specific ecosystem types, for their specific regions that they're interested in, for the times, the dates that they're interested in studying trash. And everybody who's involved in this will be collaborators on the OSF homepage. And so you'll be acknowledged as that, and as well on the dashboard that we create. So we're looking for people of all skill levels, people who are interested in helping to curate metadata, as well as developing documentation for the database and for the dashboard. And also anybody who has experience coding in Shiny or R languages, Python languages, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, any of those languages are very much welcome, but you don't have to be a coder to join this. I just want to make that point too. All of the database stuff that we're going to be doing is all just point and click, so any skill level can help. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Wynn. So next up, we have Walter Yu and Tony Hale with the Artificial Intelligence and Modeling Group.
Right. Welcome, everyone. And Tony, should I go ahead and do the intro? That's Tony and I.
Feel free. Yeah.
All right. How about this? Why don't I lead off, and then I'll hand it over to you. So Walter Yu, I'll be co-leading the Artificial Intelligence and Modeling Group session with Tony Hale. And, we have a pretty wide area, right? AI and modeling, machine learning, a lot of stuff out there. So I think part of the task will be both to develop a good understanding as well as get hands-on. So something for everybody, don't be intimidated by machine learning or AI. Machines may be taking over soon, but we'll try to pace it and also apply it, more importantly, in the trash. I think one important thing we want to distinguish is that there's AI is really the bright shiny thing, right? We hear about machines and robots and code every day in the news, but how do we apply this to trash? So, we start off with basically that discussion is what are some potential use cases? And then also what is the state of practice for everybody? And so we want to engage in some discussion, and that'll lead to the first deliverable we're going to work on, which is around a roadmap. So how could we apply some of these technologies? And then we'll have, Tony will be leading a section on computer vision, which is basically image recognition, or, basically using computers to detect objects, which you see there on the slide in the upper right. And so there will be a case study and also some discussion, and then coming, up with a roadmap. And then the next section will be on the machine learning. And again, don't be intimidated. There will be a brief intro, and then there will be a hands-on group exercise. And actually, two of them, come to think of it, we actually have collaborative notebooks using Google Collaboratory to share with the group, so you can work on those. And again, they'll be fully guided. We'll be there with you. We'll work on them together. There's one on machine learning to build a trash level classifier using open data, and another one doing a map. So once we're able to do some machine learning, get our hands wet, dirty, so to speak, there will be one on mapping. And then there's also open data attached to those, and those are completed examples which you can make your own, and then you can take on with you. And then again, there will be some next steps there. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And again, Tony, I want to hand over to you for computer vision, if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, well, thanks, Walter. So just so you understand a little bit about us, Walter comes from Caltrans. You're still with Caltrans, right, Walter? Yeah. So he comes from Caltrans.
Yes,
I come from the San Francisco Estuary Institute. It's great to work with Walter. He's a very knowledgeable guy. And, I think that one thing to bear in mind if you come to our group is that we're really trying to start at the ground floor. So we want to bring everybody up through the elevator of knowledge. So don't feel intimidated by any of this. I would say, though, that if you have an interest in learning more about applying artificial intelligence and different models to the trash problem, it would be good for you to be involved in the first day, so that you have some definitional, kind of semantics worked out, since we'll be establishing some concepts early in our session. So if you're jumping around, you might want to be here in the beginning to get the lowdown on what these terms mean. But really, this should appeal to people who want to leverage as an end user, that you might want to apply it without knowing all the details. But then we'll also have elements that Walter mentioned about the kind of like how to manipulate the code and develop models. So a little bit for everybody. So hopefully it will be interesting to you. I think that's all we wanted to share at this time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Walter and Tony. And for the third group, we have Gary Conley leading the group, listed as aligning trash monitoring with critical knowledge needs. So Gary, if you just want to give us a quick rundown of your group, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I feel like we're on like a reality show, trying to get people to join our teams here, given our pitch. So I'm Gary Conley. I'm with Second Nature. We do a lot of work helping cities meet their trash compliance requirements. We do partnerships with groups like Nature Conservancy that work towards healthy, green, resilient cities. So I'm going to be co-leading this group with Shelley Moore at SFEI, who has been also working on trash forever. Shelley, if I'll just sort of give a quick little intro, and if there's something you want to add, please chime in. When we know that there's a lot of trash monitoring and data collection happening, but when we look around, we know that we can't address all of the questions that we'd like to address with those data. And when we first started talking about these issues a long time ago, we were trying to put data together, and we still have a lot of work to do on that front. Implicit in that desire is that we'd like to address management questions at a regional or even statewide scale that we have a poor capacity to do. What we'll be doing in this, another reason is that lots of different people collecting data or that have management questions, well, they have their own objectives, and that drives the way that the data are collected and analyzed. What we want to do at this group is trace the process all the way from management questions through data collection, experimental design, data analysis, and generation of products that are to be used to make better decisions, to identify where problems are, how severe they are, where management actions can be more effective. And we're going to create a structure with a defined set of management questions, identify the group to do that, to trace that thread all the way through. What we'll end up with is a way to educate our intuition about that process of stepping through all the way from management questions through to those data products. We'll illustrate what that process looks like for that specific set of management questions. And we'll compare these kind of idealized frameworks that are created by the group to what we currently have out there to try to identify where those gaps are. Are those gaps in the coordination of monitoring groups? Are those gaps in inadequate monitoring designs to address the most pressing management questions? Are those gaps in the data access and analysis to get the data to the right people to be able to make those decisions? So this is sort of nothing terribly technical with this group. This is pretty high level conceptual based product that we'll be generating. So suitable for anybody that has an interest in solving trash problems and wants to understand how we can design experiments to get the data that we need to make better decisions. Shelley, do you have anything else to add to what we'll be doing in this group?
I do not. You did a great job, Gary.
All right.
Come join our group.
Come on over.
Group 2 is the best, by the way, just FYI.
No.
I don't think so.
Definitely not. We have the highest number 3, group 3.
Nothing wrong with a little healthy competition. So, all right, thanks everyone for your pitches. That was great. I'd like to go over just a couple logistical things before we jump into those groups. So in the series of emails I've sent out, you should have access and links to get to the Google Slides that are respective to each group. And that is essentially going to be your whiteboard. That's where you can write down your ideas, you can collaborate. Obviously, Zoom will have the audio and visual, as well as the text-based chat that you can do within those groups as well too. But these Google Slides can really write down your little notes, ideas, anything you want to have as part of your recorded efforts. So when we open the breakout rooms, you should be able to navigate to whichever room you would like. We have a poll up now too, just to give us a little bit of feedback on which which group you may be interested in. And again, when you do choose one, it would be helpful for us if you would rename yourselves, putting the number of your group at the beginning of your name. So if you want to go to the trash data dashboard, that's group 1, if you could just put a 1 before your name, that will help us just to try to keep everyone organized as well. If you do wind up changing rooms, if you could change that number, that'd be very helpful. We'll keep this poll going in the background while I explain a few other logistics. Again, those emails will have the links to those group slides, as well as the contact information for each of the group leads and myself if you get disconnected or you come up with any other issues. There's also a link in there. If you have, this will come up organically during the conversation, but if you have already in mind links to specific data sets, organizations, events, any of this, there is a link in there that you will be able to click on and add comments to, which we will then add to the document as they come in, just to kind of keep a bit of a record of things that you might want to advertise or make people a little more aware of as it pertains to this group and the types of events and objectives that they work on. And then also the link to the agenda is in there too. I will go over that very briefly. So now that we have finished this section, the next thing we're going to be doing it shortly is breaking into these different groups. There's two time periods I wanted to bring to your to make you aware of. 12 to 1 is our break. So if you want to go get lunch, catch up on emails, that is your time to be away from everybody. We're not going to be reconvening in the main room at the end of at 12 o'clock essentially. So you can just stay in your rooms or come and go as you please. And then at 2:40, we are going to ask everybody does reconvene in the main room. And at that point, we're going to have everybody give a roughly 5-minute presentation on what your group has accomplished or talked about over the course of your discussion groups today. And it doesn't have to be super formal. Since it is already going to be in Google Slides, you can just add a few slides to the end if you want to just present directly off of that. But again, this is your time. There's no real set objectives for these breakout groups. This is your time to work together and collaborate. So whatever you hope to get out of this, that is up to you guys. And I'm really excited to see what each group has to contribute at the end.
Hey, Ross, can I give a quick pitch for the data challenge?
Yes, absolutely, Greg.
All right, I'm gonna try to share here. So the California Water Data Challenge is a project of many different partners that it's essentially a competition style challenge, and it's in its 3rd year, I believe, but it's been extended because of the last year's craziness. The deadline to submit projects has been extended to February 1. I'm going to try to share. Does that work? You guys see the screen here?
Yep, just fine.
Okay, so if you go to waterchallenge.data.ca.gov, you'll see the main screen. This is the challenge tab, and I'm just going to walk through it really quickly. There's a series of challenge questions that could be useful for projects that come out of this, and there's cash prizes awarded to some of the projects. So essentially, by February 1, if you have something that's even a conceptual level of a project, you could submit it. The areas that you could sort of focus on, I think, are well defined here. It is aimed at vulnerability and resilience of our communities, but there's definitely things like strengthening data-enabled communications, and improving the quality and usability of our data and metadata that I think would be highly relevant to the work that we're talking about today. A lot of the other ones are sort of looking at the safe, affordable drinking water kinds of issues, but that even to me has some nexus to the work that we're doing. So anyway, if you're interested and you form a team, or you think after today and tomorrow that there is a project, go ahead and flesh it out and submit it by February 1. Thanks.
All right, let's see here. Okay, so it looks like breakout room 3 is quite popular. Here are the results. Can everyone see those poll results? Okay, it looks like yes. Okay, great. Yeah. So I guess 3 is pretty popular. So yeah, again, feel free to put those numbers in front of your names. Those will help us navigate people into the rooms. But again, once the rooms are open, you should be able to navigate yourself. So feel free to get comfortable in your rooms, but also go move around and see what the discussion looks like throughout the day. I think you, as each group and falls into a bit more of a pattern of what they're doing, you'll be able to figure out which resonates the best with you. And yeah, so let's see. Okay, yeah. So again, those of you who responded to that survey, you will be moved into the room that you indicated on the survey. So you've been pre-assigned to that room. So if there's any issues with your room or where you want to be, reach out to us if you are unable to navigate yourself, and we will work to put everyone where they need to be. So Nick, yeah, if you want to go ahead and start opening up those breakout rooms, we will go ahead and get started. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hope you guys all had productive breakout sessions over the course of the day. I was definitely popping in and out of a few of them, and it sounded like there was some great conversation happening on a variety of topics. So I'm interested to hear more about those. What we'll do now is just a very brief little 5-minute or up to 5-minute presentations from each of the groups. So I guess we can probably just go in order, start with group 1. Wynn, how do you want to talk about what you guys did today?
Yeah, so we had so much fun diving into the trash data dumpster of many different data sets that we've added to the Trash Data Treasure Trove, which is a online data portal for trash data. And what we're trying to do is curate metadata and eventually make a dashboard for quickly filtering the results to find data that's pertinent to whoever is looking for trash data. In the process, we realized that the metadata curation is actually extremely challenging because of the quality of many of these data sets and the lack of metadata that accompanies them in their raw form. And so we did a lot of Googling to try to, find out where this data come from, what's it about, and we learned quite a few things along the way. I think that one of the things that we're going to shift for the next, so we did initially intend to build a dashboard today too, but time flies when you're having fun. You just can't do everything. So we didn't get to the dashboard today, but I'm going to try to hack a dashboard tonight, and then we're going to use that tomorrow. We're going to come back and we're going to really talk about what should this dashboard look like? Is this what we think it should be, and how could it be improved? How can we make trash data more useful, and ask some really fundamental questions like that. So yeah, there's like a lot of really great nuggets of wisdom in the notes from the Google document that we're all taking notes on. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. So we'll continue to build from there. And sounds like most of the folks will be joining us tomorrow again, and there will be some other people there too. So yeah, it was our day.
Awesome. Yeah, I can confirm that retroactively trying to standardize and curate data can be a bit tricky looking back at old stuff sometimes. Yeah, and to kind of build on that point that Whitten was just saying, that's kind of one of the main ideas behind compiling all these ideas into those Google slides, where if you're in group 2 and you're kind of curious what group 1 did, these are all going to be available after the fact to go back and look over. So if you, for any of the groups. So that's going to be a resource moving forward that we'll be able to leverage and keep building on. Cool. All right. So group 2, trash AI and modeling. Do you want to give us a brief rundown of what you guys did today?
Tony, do you want to do the honors? I started. Either way, you want me to cover it?
No, I can go ahead and kick us off, and then maybe you can fill in the inevitable gaps I leave.
Sounds good.
I think we had a really robust discussion in group 2. We called it a small but mighty group. It was great to hear from people about their interests in artificial intelligence and modeling. We heard from Taylor Hansen of Fusco Engineering about his desire to further refine his existing model and to determine appropriate measures of success with that work. Eric Baggs of RB5 was really interested in getting beyond, taking this opportunity to refine this binary of is there trash in this particular assessment area or not, to see how best you could utilize some innovations to monitor trash in a way that doesn't require a whole lot of additional labor. Tanya Torres of the NOAA Marine Debris Program was interested in detecting marine debris and imagery, so in the actual open ocean, and that was an interesting challenge to discuss. And Ying Jin talked about developing new models for trash detection. So we had a number of different questions coming forward, and Scott Coffin also joined us and was a great contributor to the discussion. I think I've covered a number of people who were part of that, but essentially what we ended up doing was laying out the field of AI and its in particular its applications to detecting and characterizing trash. We went into some detail into a kind of a case study for computer vision, and looked at challenges in data collection, data analysis, algorithm training and refinement, and then further into the opportunities for operationalization of this type of algorithm. So the computer vision did occupy a bit of our time in the morning. From there, we shifted into some of the work that Walter's been doing with Caltrans in machine learning, and really helping to address a need to detect trash in the vast miles of Caltrans right-of-way, detecting trash and then predicting the condition scores. Review different models, things to consider when looking at different types of models. And so that I think people found that very helpful to see all the families of different machine learning models, what are their strengths and how they address different forms of measurements. And then ended up with laying out different projects that we might end up doing tomorrow, just so that everyone is aware. In case you want to jump over to the best group for tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the developing a trash level classifier using a Jupyter notebook, a Google Colab notebook, where Walter has been preparing us for this. It's going to be pretty cool, technical, yes, and pretty exciting to collaborate on a coding project. And then maybe, time allowing, we'll be able to get into data visualization and mapping of some of that data as well. So Walter, do you want to fill in any gaps?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. Yeah, I think as a recap, we're going to start tomorrow with basically data, trash classifier using Notebook, which is a collaborative space. We did a walkthrough of how to download and use it. And, basically everyone has their own copy. So when you're done, you can take it with you. The visualization is actually doing mapping. So we realized that the trash data has a geospatial component. So then we, again, using the Notebook, have already pre-built these templates, which folks can, play around with, and then afterwards make their own copies, things like that. So yeah, back to you. And I guess back to the group. Thanks for covering, Tony.
All right, awesome. Yeah, no, it's really cool to hear that you guys are able to really just actually delve into the guts of it and really start building on different programming and coding elements. I think that's awesome. Cool. All right, last but not least, group 3.
Hey, sure. Thanks, Ross. Yeah, we had a great group of folks with just a really wide array of perspectives, which is just really useful when you're tackling this, developing a conceptual framework as we are here. We spent the first part of the session before lunch sort of heads down, contributing to our boards, developing different management questions, because this set of questions is going to be sort of the foundation that we derive from towards data products. That was less fun than talking. So the second half, we spent most of the time not heads down and discussing, and it's really interesting, doing it in this format. It definitely at times, I think we all miss the old board and sticky note approach for sure, because we tend to do both those things at the same time. And so in the second part of the session, we tried to do that a little bit more, just because what I found was, as folks were making contributions of their management questions, often when or whatever they saw as their gaps to addressing those questions, often when people would begin to explain where they were coming from and put some more meat on the bones of those statements, well, my opinion shifted a little bit about how we would prioritize those questions, and I think that happened for other folks too. So that was sort of how we went structurally. How we spent our time content development wise was mostly on development of a set of management questions. We probably had 24 and narrowed that down, sort of combined and narrowed and prioritized down to 4 core ones for our group. The next phase was identifying the most important gaps and barriers in existing data and methods for addressing those management questions. And then the third step we did was to map those barriers and gaps onto a space occupied by the quadrants that were those management questions. And what came out of that was really interesting. We had some overlap in the management questions, but in particular in the gaps and barriers, common threads just seem to emerge over and over again. And they're just so closely related to one another. For monitoring data collection, we need for that to be more efficient. We need good collaboration, understanding, and data sharing and data understanding to identify potential points of synergy to make those monitoring designs more efficient. Sometimes it might just not be very much work to alter a design just slightly, so those data would be more useful across addressing a range of management questions. So that's just one example of a thread that seemed to make its way through the whole process. So that was really fun to sort of identify what those things were and how they threaded through. So today we basically built a bunch of pieces to what our conceptual structure is going to be. Tomorrow, the process is going to be to start to put each of those pieces together in a logical sequence with a rationale for decision points along the way to get from those questions through experimental design to the data products that would result. So that was us. Shelley, what did I miss here? For all we spent all day. There must be more than that.
No, I think you hit it all. There's a lot of great discussion and a lot of points made about the different questions that people have. There's some overlap and many gaps. And you're right; those are very common gaps that overlap on many of those questions. So, great job, Gary.
Thanks everyone for your contributions. Great job, Team 3, the best team, no matter what Tony says.
Sounds like there's a couple best teams. I'm not sure how that works out, but I think that just shows the confidence you all have. Awesome, yeah, and Group 3, you guys had a lot of people, so I think that definitely provides a lot of perspectives, but I think it's a really cool opportunity to have that big melting pot of ideas there. Awesome, well, thanks for all that feedback. That sounds great, and that's why I'm kind of excited about the fact that this is a two parcel day event, because it gives everyone a chance to kind of think about what happened today, go do other work you have to do, and then tomorrow we'll reconvene for those of you who can make it, and finish up tomorrow. And I think that kind of rolls into just a quick rundown for tomorrow. It's going to essentially be the same as today. We're going to have a much shorter introduction, obviously, because I think everyone has a pretty good idea of what they want to work on or continue working on. Again, feel free if you want to check out a couple of different rooms. You're more than welcome to do so. But I think people are really starting to kind of get into their grooves now. So it sounds like people know what they want to continue working on. If new people show up, I'm happy to give them a quick rundown tomorrow before we jump back into groups. But I think we'll be able to start much quicker tomorrow. Yeah, the only other thing I was going to mention that some people, when they left and came back, the numbers in their name disappeared for some reason. So just if you could try to be cognizant of that tomorrow, that when you log in, just double check that you have a number with your name, just because it makes it a little easier for us to keep track of who's where. But besides that, awesome job today. That was great getting to hear all of those different group presentations. And we still have a few minutes. If anyone has any questions or logistical questions, I'm here to, or I'm sure several people could answer your questions.
Where can I buy a flat cap? No, just kidding.
Apparently they're mandatory.
They're required. But Ross, I just wanted to thank you for your service and kind of keeping us all on track. It's been like herding cats at times, I know. So on behalf of all the cats, we thank you very much.
You're all very welcome. So.
what are the next steps after this Datathon?
Yeah, so we are putting aside a little more time tomorrow. We're going to be ending at 2:30 instead of 2:40 for again kind of debriefs from each group for the day. But then after that, we'll talk about some different follow-ups ideas. Make sure everyone has those links available to them to follow up on. And I think a lot of that is, well, we will have more events in the future as well. But besides that, I think one of the cool things about these events is that it's a great way to make these connections within your groups, and even perhaps someone you didn't necessarily work in the same group as. You might be aware of someone who's doing some work that you're interested in. It's a good way to put people in touch. So it sounds like group 2 are going to be able to kind of build on what they've been working on today as one example. So I don't necessarily have a prescribed next step for you, but I think that will vary depending on what you would hope to get out of this. We will also be doing a recorded summary of all the groups. I'll be recording in the next couple of weeks, just to kind of go a little bit more into not just the 5-minute presentation, but to go a little more into depth about some of the slides that each individual group did. And I'll be making one kind of comprehensive location with all of those. So that will be another good avenue to follow up on if something on that piques your interest.
Yeah, I think that there'll be a couple. I mean, as Ross kind of indicated, we'll see how where the momentum is going. We generally at least hold one of these or try to annually, but also I posted in the chat, there's a 6th annual event of the Water Data Science Symposium, where we generally have an opportunity to either have a concurrent event where we can host another, like a follow-up datathon or hackathon on key topics like trash. And that could be an opportunity where if there's a lot of momentum and work that can be done from now to say the end of June, and then kind of build on that or report back on that, that'd be a great opportunity. And then we, usually Greg and I get together and kind of think about, okay, how, where was the most interest? Where were people really eager to build something and move the next action forward? There's also a bunch of stuff coming out in a couple of months. The SFEI Ocean Protection Council study should be coming out in March, and that'll be really interesting to see and interesting to follow up on. There's some plastic stuff going on as well at the CNRA that can be interesting to build off of. So I think there'll be several follow-up opportunities along the way. The first like major event, 2-day event, is going to be June 29th and 30th, which is the symposium dates. But I think if it's worthwhile and people are interested, we could probably set up like another follow-up event before that, and then certainly after that, and then take advantage of and leverage that opportunity as well.
Hey guys, I think this was mentioned earlier. Somebody asked if there was the ability to record any of the other sessions that you weren't physically in. I think somebody responded that there wasn't the ability, but if there is any way of doing that, I would greatly appreciate it. I would love to see what's going on in the data dashboard group and in the AI group, particularly with those notebooks. So if there's any way of doing that, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, Shelly, I think the issue was that if you record the main room, you can't use that same recording to record the breakout rooms. There may be a manner in which someone in those breakout groups are able to record their sessions, but I don't think it would be on the same. We from our recording can't record the breakout rooms, as far as I know.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a desire for folks to really do that, and I don't know if it'll be of interest tomorrow, I think I could maybe empower each of the leads to record your rooms individually. I can't do it though from my end. Unfortunately.
I tried to click the button, but it said that I needed permission.
Right, so I could grant you guys permission, so by making you like a co-host, but and I wish we would have thought of that beforehand. But I think that would have been a smart thing to do, especially for today. But I can certainly do that tomorrow morning. I can empower Gary and Wynn and Shelly and Tony and Walter to each record their particular specific breakout rooms, and then provide the recordings to me, and I can post those on YouTubes.
That would be awesome.
It looks like Kate had the idea that a backup option could be using QuickTime also. To just do the screen record.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be through Zoom necessarily. If you found some way to just record your audio and visual in a different manner, I think that could work too. So if people want to brainstorm ideas for that tomorrow and bring them and bring those up tomorrow morning, that would help all of us. So. Great. Okay. Well, if that's it, then I will see you all tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, and we will get ready for day 2.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks.